Be confident, not arrogant, and learn the difference.
Especially with your beliefs, because they may change and you don't want to look back and be embarrassed.
Good morning and happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday, Turkey Tots.
It's actually morning when we're recording, so I feel authentic in saying good morning.
I actually have coffee in my coffee mug, so yes, good morning. Sorry if I look tired.
I'm opening my eyes extra wide to feel awake. Maybe that's some type of a behavioral, like you're smiling thing.
Sometimes I have to like move my face really wide. Oh, this is going to be great for the YouTubers, but slap your face a couple times, splash some cold water on your face. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this morning we have a topic that I'm really excited about. We've been muddling through ideas of who is really our target audience. And then I came upon a post that somebody did that basically said, for those of you in your 30s, what's one piece of advice you would give to somebody who just started their 20s? And I was like, this is such a fun topic. And it made me excited. And then it made me think that as much as I love bro life, I do really get excited about women helping women. And just looking back, and in my dream world of all worlds, where we would do this episode where we talk about kind of 10 pieces of advice that we would give looking back. And then it would be my whole heart's dream if a podcast of women that were in their 40s would do the same about their 30s.
I would love that.
And so on and so forth. I just need to find some.
Yeah, if you know of any 40s podcasts, tag them. We'll have to reach out and see if we can get any responses, because I'd love some good advice.
Yeah, it's just every decade I think you learn something, and there's all kinds of human development theories about this just from different psychology people and things like that over the years. But I feel so different entering my 30s than I did entering my 20s.
I feel like that was a whole other life ago. Completely different.
I almost wonder if I'm the same person. There's nuggets on the inside that are the same. I think they're just more exposed now, but I wonder if it will be as drastic entering our 40s.
That's a good question. Or if it's just more of a gradual growth and, we get more wisdom and knowledge as we grow older, but it may not be as stark of a difference. Because I do feel like going into my 30s, granted, okay, so we're early 30s. We're both 32 at the time of recording, right?
Yeah.
God, I still think I'm 31. Okay, anyway, we're 32. We also got married right at 30, got pregnant right at 30. So I feel like a lot of life shift happened too. But looking back at my 20s after we discussed this and kind of putting some things together, it feels so different. And I'm glad that we've talked about this briefly, but I'm glad we're out of our 20s because it was great and everything. But I feel as though our 30s will be better. They've already been better. And that's what curiouses me. That's what gets me thinking, is just every decade better because you just evolve and learn to love yourself more. And yeah.
I wonder if the changes is exponential. I need somebody that's in their 70s to do a life review and let me know. I don't know. Anyway, I guess we'll have this archived on the internet and we'll find out if the world lasts that long.
Right. I hope so.
I think mine are kind of all over the place, but I'll start with my first one, which is a real banger. I'm going to go 10 to 1 because that just feels fun this morning. So piece of advice number 10, buy a vibrator. Sometimes you're lonely, but sometimes you're horny. Learn the difference and enjoy some time with yourself.
That's not where I thought we were starting, but I love it. That is so funny.
There's probably a little more depth if you look into it. Like, are you swiping because you're horny? And could that just be resolved by a little bean flick? Or are you in a place where you want to have a relationship. And if you want to just hook up, again, that's fine. But, it's like when you think you're hungry, but really you're dehydrated and you just need to drink some water. Just check in a minute.
It's such a good one. I have nothing more to add to that. That was so good. Oh my God. Wow. Where do I go from there? My number one, I didn't do these in order, but now I'm looking at these and I'm saying that my number one thing is to go to therapy sooner. Because I started going to therapy, late 20s, 28 probably. And man, it changed a whole lot for me. And it was really helpful. And if I had that in my early 20s, ooh, we could have had a lot more healing early and maybe made a little less mistakes. So that's my number. If I was telling myself in my 20s, like if I had a time capsule, I'd be like, Kayla, go to therapy right now.
Like, whoa! Almost just fell off my chair. It's coming. That is coming on my list. Perfect. It's definitely on here. At number 9, I said, make exercise part of your routine. Walking and running are free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an important one because, depending on where you are at in life, even out of your 20s, sometimes you don't want to spend money on things like that, but it shouldn't be a reason to not do anything. And that's really important.
And there's so much stuff on YouTube now.
Oh, so much. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Never mind. I mean, I'm still using Yoga with Adriene. I don't know when I discovered her, but I mean, we've probably spent a decade on and off YouTube. Just with that.
Yeah, YouTube, there's so many resources that we didn't have back when we were in our 20s. I feel like YouTube is a great place to start, and it's completely free, so I love it.
It is.
It's funny. Oh, go ahead.
What? Oh, I was just going to say, like, it's never going to get easier to work exercise into what you're doing. And the sooner you can get yourself addicted to it, I feel like the easier that it is to keep it even when other stuff gets busy. I tried to be very mindful about finances in your 20s, especially understanding a lot of people are in college and things like that. So that's why I'm making sure to point out you can flap yourself around and do body weight exercises, just the weight of your body in your dorm or your apartment for free with a phone and some YouTubes.
Yep. It's always hard to start, but it's a lot harder to start when you're older.
Yes.
Because it's funny, one of the things on my list is don't take your body for granted and don't take your recovery for granted, aka workout recovery, hangover recovery, not getting as much sleep recovery. We used to go out until 3 a.m, maybe didn't go to bed till 4. I would wake up and go to work the next day. I was a little hungover, no big deal. Ate a burger, went on my day. I don't get a good 8 hours of sleep and I'm cranky. No, I'm kidding. But I feel like I took that for granted, especially your body with how it recovers, with how it moves, with your flexibility, with your, agility. And I also look back on pictures in those moments back when I was in my 20s. I thought I was not in the best shape. And now I just wish I could go back and be in that little body.
And cherish it.
Yeah.
I even look back at a picture, I was like 25. I don't know what Jason and I were doing. We were scrolling through our phones, but I was like, damn, I was a lot skinnier. And then I kind of thought about it. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be in my 20s. I'm not in my 20s anymore. I want to be in shape and I want to be healthy. And, there's like parameters I have for myself, but I'm also not, I don't have the same amount of time and I don't have the same hormone levels on board. Exactly. I'm glad I have a foundation of, I have built muscle and I have exercised basically my entire adult life. So it's easy to stay in those motions. I would not want to be starting that stuff from scratch right now. So I'm very thankful for that. But I was kind of laughing. And then I felt bad about it for a minute. And then I was like, Jason doesn't look like he did when we first met either. We're both still like exercising and being healthy, but it's fine.
It's okay.
And I'm more obsessed with him now than I was when we first met. So I'm not worried about it.
Aww.
Did you just go?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Check in on yourself. Stop asking how everyone else is doing first and take up some space for yourself. There will be plenty of time for partnerships and children if you want them, but give yourself the gift of paying attention to your own needs.
Oh, that's a good one. There's a lot of avoidance. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, still. I feel like it's easy to avoid, and I think a lot of people can easily write it off as, oh, I just care for others and I need to put them first. But it's that stupid cliche saying, you can't fill other people's cup unless your cup is full. But it's so true. It's so true.
It is. And it doesn't, there's not more time later. I think you think you're really busy when you're in college. It's not the same.
No, you guys, look at your lives, little ones. You're not doing really anything. That's really funny. Okay, there's two things that I could go into right now. God, we're always on the same page. Okay. I'm basically going in the order of what follows what you just said because I don't really have a 1 through 10. Oh, here we go. I said, do all the things you want. Try all the things you want to try. Go explore. Take a risk. Go on a trip with friends. Because family life, if you choose to have one, is amazing. Married life, having kids. But you don't realize how much time you have until you don't have it anymore. So it goes perfectly in line with what you just said. I mean, we thought we were busy, and I thought, oh my God, I have so much to do. Then you throw a husband and a house and a child along with that, and now I really actually have no time. It's very limited. So don't take your body for granted, don't take your time for granted, because it starts to dwindle.
Yeah. Spend money on good bras and underwear.
That's a great one.
You can skimp on buying the generic paper towels, but put something on that makes you feel good. Not the shit from Walmart.
That's a great one. I love that one so much. Yeah.
And I don't mean that they have to be like lacy and push-up bras. I mean, have some of those. It's fun. But patterns on your underwear that you think are cute, or get the seamless ones that feel good under leggings, or I'm wearing one of my favorite bras. Shout out to, is it Adore Me? Yeah. But it's like the unlined one that still sort of has a little bit of a shape, so it's comfortable, but it's not a sports bra. There's still a little bit of padding. Like, it just feels good.
Yeah, it's important.
Versus some craggy thing that's shoving underwires into your boobs and shit. Just, again, you can skimp on some things. Don't skimp on that.
That's a great piece of advice. Well, this is going to be some tough love. You're still dumb, and that's okay. Seriously, I just kind of was thinking, this is your first decade out of the house, typically. You're not under your parents. You are still just trying to figure yourself out. And you don't know what you want, and those things could change. And literally, you're like college. We start off in late teens and in early 20s. But after college, you really feel like, I'm using air quotes, an adult for the first time. And you really, like, the world is your oyster. You're trying to figure out what you want to do, where you want to live, who you want to hang out with. And it's all of your choice for the first time. And I feel like it takes some trial and error to figure out, what works for you. And so it's okay to make mistakes. And yeah, I just feel like if you make dumb decisions, try not to, aka that's why you should go to therapy and have a good group of people around you. But it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes because you're on your own for the first time.
Yeah, it's definitely an adjustment. It's like the first time your parents leave you home alone and you can have whatever you want for dinner and you eat some bullshit and then you feel sick.
Exactly.
It's okay. Sometimes you'll feel like you're on a treadmill and not going anywhere, but you're not. Sometimes the landscape is just unchanging for a while. Keep plugging away at your goals. Eventually, you'll be able to look back and see some progress.
I love that.
I felt stuck for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, because I did not live on campus in college. So I just worked and went to school. And I felt sometimes, because I worked at Starbucks, so it's not as though I had a 5-day work week.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt as though all 7 days of the week were just the same day over and over and over again. And I remember there were some times where I just thought, I'm not making any progress. My bachelor's feels forever away. Ugh. But the one thing I was able to do, which if you can, is nice, is I was closing at Starbucks and I was doing day classes in school. And just for the sake of switching up my routine, I flopped them and started opening at Starbucks and then taking afternoon and evening classes, which was tough because getting up at 3:30 in the morning doesn't really provide for a lot of attention span at 8:30 at night for some of my nighttime classes.
Oh my gosh.
But just the change in routine helped me feel less like I was in a slump. And then it turned out it was better for me to be in night classes anyway, because that's when all the other working adults were in the classes. So as somebody that was working all day and then going to school at night, I had more in common with them than the people who were rolling out of bed in their pajamas and going to class in the morning. It just, especially the college I went to, there were a lot of second career type people. Anyway, it ended up being a really good change for me as someone that was also working to be around more of that culture. And it also put me in a little bit more of the younger end of the classroom. And there were more older people, which I'll get to later. But it's always good to have older people in the room because, like Kayla said, you're still dumb.
I love it. Yeah, I didn't forget about your Starbucks days because I remember when you worked at Starbucks, but I didn't realize you were going to night classes that late and then having to open. Gosh, that would have been hard.
Luckily, I got to do that in my 20s.
Yes.
Not my 40s.
Well, speaking of jobs and careers, I feel like as a young adult, there's a lot of pressure on where you're going to go to college, what degree you're going to get, what job are you going to go for. And people want to put you in a box and you always feel like you have to have everything figured out and you know your path. I want to go to this school so I can be a doctor. That's my, path in life, my destination. But honestly, the career you pick out of college, it's important, but it's not the end all be all. You can change jobs. There's such thing as going to a different company, going to a different industry, working completely something different if you don't like your first job. I feel like you shouldn't stress too much on the first one or the right thing because you can always change it.
I think our parents' generation was still part of you pick a career and you ride it forever.
Yep.
And we started getting more comfortable. We are getting more comfortable with moving around as we need to. I feel as though Gen Z is just...
They're bouncing off the walls.
Wild. Which good for them.
Hell
I think it's
yeah.
holding companies more accountable because they don't feel an obligation to them.
I talked to so many people where they purposely, their plan is to jump every 2 years because every time they jump, they get a pay raise. It's a whole new system. It's very interesting.
It's so interesting. The loyalties are shifting away from the company and to yourself and your life. And I like seeing it. I've worked with boomers, Xers, millennials, and Gen Zs now, and it's wild the difference between them. And like, I really freak out boomers and even Xers, and then the Zs freak me out. So it's fun. Going back to, don't be in a homogenous group. It's good to have a mix. My next piece of advice is trust your gut. If it doesn't feel like a good situation, leave. You can apologize later.
Oh, I should have put that one on my list. That should have been number one. I like that one.
The number of times I argued with myself over being polite versus just leaving a situation. 10 out of 10 should have left every time. Always regretted staying.
Yeah.
I've never once regretted leaving a situation that made me uncomfortable.
No. Fuck that. Ugh. Shit. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Okay, this is down a different alley. And this may or may not be applicable, but I feel as though with the knowledge and wisdom you gain and maybe just life experiences, whether it's one way or the other, don't be surprised if your political or major beliefs may and or probably will change, depending on your life circumstances.
I think they should. Some things should change.
Yeah. Again, you're out of your parents' house and influence. You're figuring stuff out on your own and depending on, certain things. I know mine shifted quite drastically and it's just interesting. So don't be afraid or feel guilty.
Yeah, or be embarrassed.
Yeah.
Next on my list of advice I would give to myself or anyone entering their 20s is talk to strangers. You have exited the kidnapping years. And talking to other adults is good for you. You never know who you'll meet.
I like that. I should have started networking when I was younger because that does make a difference. And you just get to learn more, more about people. And it's like traveling. But again, if you don't have the money to travel and experience the worldly culture, you just talk to different people and learn their stories.
Yeah, just find new things out. And Jason, this really came up recently because Jason has started at a new job and there are some people there that are probably in their 20s. And he said, he's walking around trying to get to know his coworkers. And there's a couple of them that are young and this is probably early in their careers. He's like, they're always on their phones. And he said, even when he's trying to talk to them, there's just a compulsion to keep scrolling. And he's saying we have to work as a team. We've got to, get to know each other, and it makes the day go by faster and it's just more interesting. And it's been fun listening to him talk because there's also people there that are older than him. Just the difference in communication skills and relationship building for the generations that have always had phones and social media and the ones, that haven't. So if you didn't have to cultivate as much of that when you were a kid, just start doing it now, because I've gotten all of my jobs because of networking and who I talk to and who and besides that, like you were saying, you can't necessarily afford to travel the world, but you can afford to turn around and chat with somebody at Starbucks. And you don't know, but you can meet really interesting people and learn new information, and it's good for you.
I like that. It kind of reminds me of, not reminds me of, kind of leads into my next point where I said, just be open to trying new experiences and don't shut something down because you never know. I think that would be applicable to people, to an opportunity, to friendships, to a hobby. I wish when I had time, I could have gone back and done a lot more things that may have sparked an interest that I feel like now I don't have the time for. Now, granted, you can always make time. I just have less of it. But yeah. I just always say go for it in a safe manner, but go for it when you can.
There's definitely more of an opportunity cost right now to your time.
Yes.
Than there was
for risks.
Yeah. Everyone has a story, but so do you. So don't let other people write yours. Therapy is probably the best way to put the pen back in your own hand. And I know it feels like you can't afford it, but be intentional and forego other treats. You might not be able to go every week, but I bet that you can afford to go once per month, and journaling in between is free.
I love that. I love that so much.
Because it's daunting. It's expensive. And it was even expensive for me when I went at 30. But that's what I ended up doing. I think she charged $100 an hour. But I went once a month for 2 hours. Well, 2 hours is 45 minutes because that's usually how they block the time. But basically for one big session once a month. And then I journaled in between. And then we could spend the first little bit going over what I journaled, and then we would work on the next thing. And I went for a year, and it's not that it was cheap, but if you break $200 apart into 4 weeks, you know, that's a lot more doable. Can you set aside $50 every week? Probably, if you're intentional about it.
It's a great way to do it. I love that. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. I'm just kidding.
Shit, and you might have parents that would pay for it anyway. So
right, and check with your employer, because a lot of insurance cover now you have to pick within the network that you're provided. But you know, at least you can start somewhere and search around.
Yeah.
What? Okay. Brain fart. Okay. I've got a couple more, but we kind of touched on this earlier. You think you're an adult, my little child, but you're not really. I know it feels like it, and you feel like you have all this responsibility, but just you wait. No, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, because I think the more you grow old, yes, you may have more responsibility, but it is a lot of reward with that responsibility. However, well, you don't have a lot. Don't take it for granted. And again, it goes back to, don't feel like you have to have everything figured out, because I thought in my 20s, okay, I gotta do this. I gotta have my life all figured out. I'm an adult now. You're still in your 20s. You've got time. Don't stress.
That's a good one. You kind of already touched on this, but don't be afraid to change your mind. The ability to take in new information and then recalibrate your belief system is a strength, not a weakness. Find books on topics you're skeptical about or disagree with and read them anyway. Find an uncut interview of a public figure you despise and read the autobiography of a person for whom you hold disdain. Make yourself uncomfortable.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. That's a good one.
I did that a couple times. I think I have a weird thing where I just enjoy making myself and other people uncomfortable, but it really ended up helping me a lot. There were multiple times where I read books or descriptions of books, and I'd think, that's trash. And then I'd read them, and there were parts of them that I still thought were horseshit, but there were also a lot of times where I would get a new piece of information and it would immediately cause me to walk back a belief that I'd been real mouthy about earlier.
Yeah,
and I'm really glad I did that and took in new information, because you've really, unless you grew up in a very unique situation, you've probably been in a bubble.
Yeah.
Up until now.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Military kids get moved around a lot, or anyone that moves around a lot and goes to different schools and things like that. Some of them will end up, I think, with more exposure than we certainly had living in one town. But still, there's so much out there, and there's so many things, and you just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Which brings me to, it's not that serious. Just relax. You know, you don't need to have everything figured out. It's just not that serious. That's my 4 words. Just don't take yourself too seriously.
I had a coworker at Starbucks. We called her Mama Cat. I'm sure she's okay with me sharing this, but it's because she was like the mama of everyone. And she was older than us by a decade or 2, depending on the person. But people would get really worked up about things. And at work, in life, and she'd pull them aside and say, 10 years from now, you're not even going to remember this.
Exactly.
It's not a big deal. All the time. I can't remember what her actual catchphrase was. So much wisdom in that. I forgot to add when I was talking about changing your mind and not liking things. I have a theory that most of the time, not always, but most of the time when we don't like something, it's because we don't like the people that are associated with it. My example is when I was younger, definitely my early 20s, everyone was talking about Joe Rogan because he started to gain steam. And I remember so vividly saying to people, I'm never going to listen to him. He's so annoying. Turns out, once I actually went to the source and actually listened to one of his podcast episodes, I loved it. It was just all the little Rogan ears that were annoying.
It's so true.
So whenever you find something irritating, I just think you should go to the source and see if the source bothers you. Not the source through someone else's lens, but the raw, uncut source. And then check in with that first, because I just think that even if you're not totally on board after the fact, there will be more redeeming qualities than you originally thought there were. And now I listen to the Joe Rogan podcast all the time.
That's so funny.
Okay. Oh, is it my turn?
Uh-huh.
Oh, my very last but not least is going to be short compared to the other ones, but be confident, not arrogant, and learn the difference.
I like that a lot. Especially with your beliefs, because they may change and you don't want to look back and be embarrassed.
There are so many times that I had such strong feelings, and I'm glad that I have feelings. Yes. And I'm glad that I am opinionated. But there were times where I had to walk them back or eat my words or take the shoe out of my mouth, and it's a process, and I'm glad that I've learned it, because I would not have wanted to enter my 30s into the more professional parts of my career with that same amount of arrogance, especially entering a workplace with people who have decades of experience in that field over me. So at least now I know my place in a room, and I'll feel things out and get a sense and take the temperature. And it's not to say that as a person with fresh perspective that I don't have good ideas, but I'm not going to come in and try to steamroll people who have been doing something for way longer than me with the arrogance of thinking that I know better. At least learning how to take that pause and intake information before you start spewing shit out of your mouth. It's very valuable, and you will have a lot easier time implementing change because it will make you way more palatable.
Yeah. Yep. Love it. Love it. My last one is also short and sweet. You're not peaking in your 20s. It's a great decade, but it won't be the best. Pretty confident it won't be the best. So again, you're not peaking. You're fine. It's not that serious. Enjoy it, but don't put too much pressure on it.
I've never wanted anything to be the peak.
I also don't want to, maybe my body I would go back to, but I don't want to go back to my 20s. I like where I'm at. I like where I'm going. You know, it was good, but I had so much to learn and it was hard. And I wouldn't want to go back.
Me either.
I'm grateful
for it. I cherish the friends that I made and the time that I had. I think I've always been an old lady. I did have the benefit of working around a wide range of people. So I got lucky that I had some perspective a little bit sooner, I think, to appreciate the space that I had, and just being selfish, thinking about myself. I could make a decision. It didn't affect anybody else. And that was nice to kind of realize that. Maybe not fully, but I did get a chance to pause more often than maybe I would have if I'd been in just more of a bubble of only people in their 20s. So I'm very thankful for that.
I love it.
And speaking of being in your 30s, I've started taking a daily fiber supplement.
How's that going?
Well, it's definitely firming things up. TBD, to be determined.
Oh, I love it. Oh, man. If anyone's listening to this in their 20s, tell us what you think. Are we just off our rocker, or can you gleam some light into what we're saying? And if you're older, if you're in your 40s or even also in your 30s, I want to know. I think this is a common thread. You always look back and realize so many things. And I think that's normal.
I think it is too. And you're never going to get around it. But I do think there's a pivotal change between recognizing that you're going to look back and say, whew, was I wrong about that? Versus living with your head up your butt or in the sand and thinking that you've already arrived at the peak of your wisdom.
Yep.
No one likes those people.
This was fun.
Well, thank you, everyone. We hope to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you like our radio voices?
Good morning. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye.
Love you, bye.